Welcome to Equine Guelph's Research Radio, a monthly look at the latest cutting-edge discoveries brought to you by SSG Gloves. The recent death of a thoroughbred filly and tragically her rider last week at Woodbine during a workout session has brought the issue of equine cardiac health to the front page. We'll talk to an Equine Guelph specialist in the area on this edition of Equine Guelph's Research Radio. SSG Gloves is also on the cutting edge. The SSG All-Weather is the most popular of all-weather gloves in the industry worldwide. Quality, durability, well, it wears like an iron and washes like a rag. Breathable, AquaSuede Plus Palm gives you a very good grip on the lines, wet or dry. And the elasticized back gives a cool, comfortable fit. The SSG All-Weather. See your local SSG dealer. For more info, go to ssgridinggloves.com. Welcome back to Research Radio. Dr. Peter Physick-Sheard is an Equine Guelph researcher who specializes in large animal cardiology, particularly in performance horses, and he joins us today. Welcome to Research Radio, Doctor. Cardiovascular problems, particularly rhythm disturbances and heart muscle damage, have been suggested as a cause of a range of exercise-associated conditions in racehorses, problems such as post-exercise pulmonary bleeding, poor performance, and sudden death. Of course, this comes to the fore in light of the tragic situation that occurred last week at Woodbine. A couple of years ago, you conducted a heart monitor study on both standardbreds and thoroughbreds at WEG. What were the findings of that study? What do the results of that study tell you to this point?
Well, before I answer that, I have to back up just a moment on something you said a moment ago. The theory that there is heart muscle damage, that's unproven. We're actually doing a separate study right now to investigate that. But you don't necessarily have to have any heart muscle damage to have rhythm disturbances. So for the Woodbine study, we are in the write-up stage right now, and we sampled about 430 horses, and we obtained diagnostic information for about 390, and we've done heavy data analysis on that, and we're looking at heart rate responses, the whole range of variables. But we have found some very interesting stuff, but it's not the same as the standardbreds, which was the study we did a couple of years before.
And can you tell us what those findings are, if you can, to this point?
The most I can tell you at this point is that the thoroughbreds are not showing us the same sorts of rhythm disturbances that the standardbreds did. But there's a very interesting finding in that the thoroughbreds, even by the time they're back into the backstretch, their heart rates are still significantly elevated. So their heart rates are not actually dropping into the zone in which we saw the rhythm disturbance in the standardbreds. They are still quite excited even when they're back in the shed row. And that's probably masking.
One wonders if that has anything to do with the nature of the two breeds. Harness horses, well back in their history, were initially used as endurance horses. Would that have something to do with it?
Conceivably, that's part of it. It may have a lot to do with both environmental influences and the training. And also the fact that when a standardbred comes off the racetrack, he moves very quickly from the racetrack into just routine post-race procedures, whereas with the thoroughbred, he's got to go all the way from the grandstand all the way back to the shed row, which is a fair haul, and he's out on the racetrack, which is inherently exciting. So I think there's lots of excitement going on all the way until he's back in the shed row, and that probably explains most of the heart rate elevation. But we're doing some advanced analysis on the files to try and nail that down.
Let's talk about what role breeding has, if any. Obviously, it's to us lay people a rather simple equation. One side of the family has a heart problem, the other side has a heart problem. You're going to produce children or offspring with heart problems. Is that the case here?
No, we have actually looked at the genetics of it, and we find no obvious genetic component, except for the fact that trotters in standardbreds seem to be more prone to these rhythm disturbances than our pacers. And obviously there's a genetic basis to that. But other than that, we haven't identified any genetic factors. I think one of the issues that we need to look at is how the heart repolarizes. Every time the heart contracts, it electrically depolarizes, then it has to repolarize before it can contract again. And I have another study going on where we're looking very closely at how the heart repolarizes or returns to electrical neutrality so that it's ready to fire again. Because there may be something in there and that could have hereditary implications, but at the present time we have no data in support of that. I think the other thing is that for heart disease in people, while there are definite hereditary issues that will cause rhythm disturbance, the majority of the hereditary component that's talked about in human cardiac disease has to do with the actual coronary arteries and coronary artery disease leading to heart attacks, which is a different kettle of fish, and there are multiple factors contributing to that. So in terms of genetics, not good evidence at this point, but we're definitely looking at that.
Now, I understand there are tests that can be run on humans that would identify genetic markers. Is there anything close to that when it comes to equine?
There are no tests currently available for horses, and again, we're potentially talking apples and oranges. We have additional research that's just come out that indicates there is a genetic predisposition to atrial fibrillation in standardbred horses, and it's not surprising to find that because in many other species there are genetic contributions to some rhythm disturbances. So this is the first indication of any genetic contribution to rhythm disturbances in the horse. But the rhythm disturbances that we're seeing, that are seen, are suspected as being the cause of sudden death in horses. The racetrack are of a different type, different category. There could be a relationship, but we have no evidence that that's the case. So once again, detecting genetic associations is a really, really, really involved process. And as we gather more and more data, we're in a better position to start looking at that. But we are coming at it from another direction, which, as I say, is to look at the repolarization issue. But all of these issues, I think one of the problems that we certainly have in the popular media with regard to heart disease in the horses is that every time a horse collapses on the track or after the race, it's assumed he's had a heart attack. In fact, horses do not have heart attacks like people have. When a person has a heart attack, it's because of an obstruction to a coronary vessel that supplies the heart muscle and heart muscle damage. Horses do not experience coronary artery disease to any significant extent, and an actual infarct, an area of the heart muscle that's been killed because of a lack of blood supply, that's an extremely rare phenomenon in horses. And none of these horses that are posted after sudden death ever exhibit any lesions that are typical of heart attacks in people. So I don't know, we probably shouldn't call it heart attack. We probably should refer to sudden cardiac failure, and that's not failure because the heart muscle's given up. It's probably failure because we've got an electrical storm. That might be a better way to describe it at the present time as an electrical storm.
More with the good doctor in just a moment. But first, have you ever heard of a digital glove? Well, the cutting-edge makers of SSG gloves have, and they've designed a DigiGrip square groove technology model that's just that, a digital glove. It's the ultimate in feel, grip, breathability, and durability. A digital pattern gives you increased grip and wear, and it's also machine washable. The DigiGrip from SSG Gloves, www.ssggloves.com. And Doctor, I understand you're doing some studies that will look into a possible correlation or looking more into the idea of heart muscle damage in horses?
And one of the studies we're going with my grad student, Dr. Tanya Rossi, is to look at whether there really is evidence of heart muscle damage in these horses, both after normal racing and after racing in which the horse has actually shown a rhythm disturbance. So we're trying to clear up that question right now, but right now we don't have any evidence that heart muscle damage actually precedes this. There seems to be a true electrical storm, and that's a random event, and it may well be that there is some genetic predisposition, but right now we have no evidence of that.
Well, you're obviously attacking this from a number of different angles, all of which I'm sure will reveal information that is going to be most helpful in maintaining the health of our equine athletes. Dr. Peter Physick-Sheard of Equine Guelph, thanks so much for joining us on Research Radio.
My pleasure.